Is the Netflix movie Hillbilly Elegy, directed by Ron Howard, any good? Let me try to explain why some of you might love this, some of you might not love this so much, in this review and analysis coming up next. Hillbilly Elegy released on Netflix November 24th, 2020. I suppose in an Oscar push because they've got two actresses here who may contend for a Best Actress Oscar nomination. Glenn Close played memorably here, playing a older grandmother, Mama, and then Amy Adams playing a mother in this movie. Hillbilly Elegy is based on JD Vance's memoir, which came to prominence around 2016 as a way to explain why primarily white working class people were voting for Donald Trump in the American presidential election. And it's a pretty interesting book overall, so I've heard. I've actually not read it, but as a memoir, pretty engaging as a way to explain what people from Kentucky and Ohio are like. Those are two locations used in the movie. As well then, JD Vance is a man in two different worlds. He's from the sort of lower working class, white working class worlds of the Midwest, the upper South in the United States, but he also goes to Yale Law School. And in this movie, you see that big cultural divide and him trying to navigate both of them as he's sort of a man stuck in between the upper class elite world of Yale Law School and the lower working class world of Kentucky and Ohio. The movie intercuts two timelines to show JD Vance as a late 20s man in law school, and then as a teenager, youngish teenager, in Ohio around the time of 1997. So you're going to have a mix of the two timelines, 1997 and 2011 in this movie. I would say one of the reasons this movie is pretty good is it intercuts those timelines very seamlessly, very well, almost memoirish in its blending of two different timelines. And one of the questions about these timelines as you're watching this is, how did J.D. Vance, the main character of this movie, get to law school when you see what was going on in the 1997 timeline with him as a young teenager who's hanging around with friends who are doing drugs and whose mother is a wreck, and he's got all kinds of social and, school problems. So how does he become a Yale Law School student out of this story? And the movie will show you that. Now, this is a movie about the American dream as announces with the sort of radio TV narrator voiceover at the very beginning. And how much you're going to like this movie depends, I think, on how much you believe in this thing, whatever it is, called the American dream. I tend to believe in it because I don't think there are other solutions. I don't see them. If you don't believe you can work hard and make something out of your life and improve your own life and improve the lives of those around you through hard work and diligence and service and, trying to go after what you love, well, what's the alternative? So this movie sort of praises that ethos, and the young J.D. Vance as a teenager has to learn how to become that sort of person when he's growing up. And you see this in the 1997 timeline with the Amy Adams character as his mother, who is into drugs. She's a nurse, but she's taking drugs. She's got multiple men in her life. She marries a man who she doesn't seem to be in love with, and she is pretty violent and very quick and prone to anger and abuse of her son. And this causes the J.D. Vance character to not do well in school, to have terrible friends and do terrible things with his friends and so on. And so his grandmother, Mama, takes over in his life and becomes his protector and his guide, played very memorably here by Glenn Close. And I would guess that Glenn Close is going to get a Best Actress nomination for this. Although I think part of the reason for that is the makeup and the costume people in this movie who did a fabulous job making her look just like J.D. Vance's, the real J.D. Vance's actual Mama or grandmother. And she is in the upper crust or upper pantheon of crusty old grandmother, grandparent figures in movies. There's a lot of grumpy old men in movies, but a grumpy old female, this is what she is. And at one point, there's a line that stands out. She loves the movie Terminator 2, and she's quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from that movie. And the line is, it's in the trailer, you have three kinds of people in the world: a good Terminator, bad Terminator, or somebody who's neutral. And she is the good Terminator helping out the young boy in this movie, a la Terminator 2. And then she's going to help him get to become that sort of American dream style man that he ends up sort of becoming. Now, there are a lot of cliches and stereotypes in this movie. It's a familiar movie if you know American Dream stories. And I think if you only focus on the cliches and stereotypes, this movie will annoy you to death and you will end up hating it. I did for the first hour, but then in the second hour, things improved for me for some reason. I think the movie grew on me. I think I understood what it was about more. And by the end, I was rooting for the main characters, and I was into the ethical dilemmas, which come up late in the movie. And later in the movie, there's a wonderful, I think, ethical dilemma with this main character, the JD Vance character in his late 20s. You know, in the 2011 timeline, he's pretty poor. He's got multiple credit cards. He doesn't have a lot of money. He's looking for a job right out of law school. He thinks he won't get it. He's a redneck in an upper crust elite society on the East Coast of America in Washington, D.C., and the Yale crowd and the Harvard crowd, the Ivy League crowd in general. So he doesn't really fit in. He doesn't have any money. And his mother is a heroin addict still. And he's got to go help her or go get a job from law school. What's he going to do? So the ethical dilemma is, should he be a man who fights for himself and his new girlfriend in law school, or should he go back home and help his mother and be a family man? Very interesting ethical conundrum in this movie with really no good answers, I think, and some interesting choices. So this is a good movie to analyze and think about, I think, with younger people in particular. The movie has a lot of excess drama. Pretty much there's tension every single moment, and it never lets up except for the very end. You know, if there's two characters on the screen, they got to be at odds with each other. Three characters on the screen, well, there's two characters versus one character, so it's almost over the top at times. I need some relief from the excess drama and tension in this movie, I think. Director Ron Howard, sometimes he's competent, sometimes I don't love what he does. I think he's trying to set the record for 180-degree flips in this movie. Go take a look at my video about that to see what it is. But he does some good stuff here. There's some quick handheld camera shots, in particular some really good out-of-focus shots late in the movie that show the character's dilemma, not fitting into either world of the Ivy League or the small-town America. And you know, he's pretty competent here. With all that said, the excellent intercutting and the editing, great job by the editor, Glenn Close's performance, it does value the American dream, and this is a movie that hits home to me because I personally have been a small-town Midwestern guy, but I've been in big universities, and I've sort of had to navigate both worlds, which are kind of different. And so I understand some of the problems of the main character in this movie. Then I find that this movie is touching and interesting. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I might watch it again. That's what that means, above average. I would watch this again casually with other people. And I would recommend this to people who are watching Netflix casually, whether it be my family and friends or people who are looking for a good, decent view. This reminds me a little bit, although it's quite different in ways, of The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, another American dream story, touching and moving and interesting and inspirational, a feel-good story, but a lot of hardships for the character along the way. And so I think that sort of movie, if that interests you, great, watch it. If you're just going to stare at the cliches and stereotypes and get annoyed by Ron Howard's quick cutting all over the place, beware of this movie because it may not interest you. And finally, I don't take this movie as about socio-political problems in general, but the white working class. I think this is a particular story, particularly about JD Vance and his problems in his life with a mother who's a heroin addict, with an older grandmother figure who wants him to do well, but she doesn't know what to do with him. And as a Yale Law School student, trying to fit into both worlds that are quite separate. You know, in America, we have this problem of lower class people not being cared for or represented, I think, much by Hollywood in particular. So good for them for making this movie. By Ivy League political class like in Washington, D.C. And so you have a lot of backlash against these kinds of elite people on the coasts versus the inland sea of Americans who are depicted in this movie. So I think this movie really tries to, talk about these things openly, particularly, interestingly, the abuse from family members or abusive scenarios and drug problems. Of course, there's a humongous drug problem in the United States with opioids in particular. Here you've got heroin. The mother is a heroin addict, the Amy Adams character. And so, she's into opioids. So the question is, who's going to take care of these people? And I rarely ever hear about this as humongous problem where tens of thousands of people are dying and overdosing from this. So I think this movie does good cultural work overall, making people aware and interested in problems, but also it offers solutions. Hard solutions, but solutions. So for all those reasons, I think this is a pretty good movie. and worth watching maybe again, maybe a couple times with other people who need this kind of inspirational story. What do you think about Hillbilly Elegy? I'd love to hear your comments and to see what you picked up on in this video, what you would criticize. I'm very interested in different ways to watch this movie and what I personally missed in it. Please subscribe to this channel for more great movie content. Thank you and have a great day.